Here's how to raise more money without burning out your fundraising team. We all know that burnout in the nonprofit sector is a very real problem, and oftentimes people who work for nonprofits are expected to work harder for less money because it's for a cause. It's like, yes, we can't afford to pay you as much, but it's for the kids, it's for the animals, it's for the patients, it's for the students, and it's just kind of a cultural expectation within the nonprofit sector. The problem with this is the people who are working are still going to burn out at the same rate that they would at a for-profit. Maybe they have a little bit of extra juice because they feel like at the end of the day, what they're doing matters, or it's important, or it's near to their heart, or they enjoy the work, but they're still human. They'll still experience the symptoms of burnout. They'll still have that compassion fatigue that comes in and prevents them from doing their best work. So in looking at a philanthropy department particularly, we can always do more. It's likely that if you have one full-time fundraiser, 40 hours a week, there's probably 80 hours a week of potential work, and that fundraiser is having to choose the best 40, and sometimes it spills into 50 or 60. We know that donor meetings and donor events may go into the evenings. We know with events and all the things that we have to do outside of work, there's probably weekend work as well. And we also know that on average, they're not getting paid what maybe a for-profit employee at like a tech firm or a finance company would for getting those extra hours or those weekend hours. So we're gonna go over our top 7 strategies to help kind of mitigate this and avoid burnout before it happens so that your fundraising team can continue to push and raise more money. All right, strategy number 1 of 7 is to focus on high impact activities. Said another way, this is we want to lose or we want to quit the low impact activities. Impact basically means money for us. Impact is in how much money is coming to the bottom line, how much money we're raising for each hour of work that our fundraising staff, that our volunteers, whoever's involved in this, what is our best ROI? And to focus on the high impact activities, we can't just do more. It's like, well, we're doing this 40 hours a week, let's just do additional high impact activities. It is really about getting rid of the things that don't bring in as much money. This can be scary because if you're like, well, these things all bring in some money, so if I stop any of them, like if I stop my event, if we don't do the event anymore, that's $18,000 we raise every year that we'll lose. Or if I don't send that spring mailing, that's $50,000, or that's 200 new donors we don't capture. Direct mail, fundraising events, even some grants that require a lot of reporting on the back end do make some money. It's not negative money by participating in those activities, seeking those funding sources, but the problem is it is not the best ROI for time, so it eats into the activities that make a little bit more sense. So here are the things that we're just gonna say, we're just gonna avoid where we can. Avoid too much time on mail, also social media, also events, also grants. Again, all of these things have some level of revenue production. They're not negative money, they're not a total waste of time, but if we're doing too much time in these areas, we're losing time on the areas that are high impact. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the video, but we just see so many nonprofits just spinning their wheels and fighting so hard to optimize these tiny little pieces. And if we think about this in terms of kind of like an overall philanthropic pie, and like here is our pie chart. This is the pie of money that we bring in. And we have this little sliver here that's events, and this little sliver here that's grants, and that's mail. And then we spend 30 hours a week trying to fix this little chunk right here. We're like, we're gonna get this chunk, we're gonna optimize it so well. And then we spend 10 hours a week or less than 10 hours a week on everything else, all of the rest of this. It's not about how much we can optimize these 30 hours that we're spending on this tiny piece of pie. We're not spending enough time on the big pie. So these are these smaller activities, events, grants, all of that. Still want to have some of that, especially if you're reliant on those programs. There's no reason to quit those, but let's just reduce a little bit. Here's how you can know how much time you're spending and how much it's worth it. Do what's called a time audit. Now, you don't have to tell anyone about this. You don't have to send these numbers to your boss or anything like that, but just do a retroactive look at how you spend your time. The easiest way to do this, if you don't want to get like a computer program that tracks which programs you're using at what time, like how long you spend on email, how long you spend on this and that, I would recommend just doing it this very basic way. So you have kind of your calendar here. Here's your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You got your calendar, and they're divided into these days. Maybe it's a digital calendar, maybe it's a paper calendar, doesn't really matter. You can do it both ways. And you have blocks of time for stuff. You have like a meeting here, you have a donor call here, you have some focus time, and there's things on your schedule. They're little blocks. What you do is, as you complete these blocks, fill them in. If they take exactly as long as you expect them to, leave them the way they are. But say this task, bleeds into lunch a little bit. Well, we actually spend a little extra time. So just fill in that a little bit extra time. And then we have lunch, and then that's here. But lunch went long, so lunch is actually now here. So as you work through your week, just update your calendar retroactively after it happens until you have every single hour filled out. And you can go back every 3 or 4 hours and be like, what did I do during this hour? What did I do during this hour? And just fill in every single hour for your working hours, so that then at the end of the week, you can look back and see, okay, on Monday I worked 8 hours and 4 minutes and it was on these things. Tuesday these things. And you have your whole 40-hour week, just a map, and all you just kind of update it on your digital calendar as it goes. But then you have a very honest look at, this is actually how I spent my week. And then look at the percentages. Look at how much time you're spending doing admin stuff. Look at how much time you're doing meetings. Look at how much time you're spending on fundraising events, on grant reporting, on grant writing, on grant research, all these things. And if you're like, okay, I'm now realizing that I'm spending 45% of my time or 65% of my time not doing these high revenue activities like major gifts and building your planned giving program and talking to donors directly, all these things that we know are the best way to spend our time. If you're less than half or less than a quarter of your time on those things, you're like, okay, now I know. I need to cut back. You don't have to make these giant sweeping changes. You don't have to totally redesign your work week, but just cut back a little bit. Say if you spend, of your 40 hours a week, 25 on activities that are not super revenue producing, maybe next week, we try to take it down to 20. Let's see if we can get half of our time to be highly productive, and the other half we can spend on this, what we have to do, the extra stuff. Don't have to make these big sweeping changes, but just make a little bit of impact here so we can start focusing on these high impact activities and lose the low impact activities. All right, number 2 is automation. If there are any tasks that you currently do that you're pretty confident that a computer could do just as fast, faster, or better, then you should probably work towards delegating those things to a computer. Like a CRM is kind of the first and best example of this. So if you have a donor database and it has the ability to send you reminders when a donor's birthday is coming out, or when a donor's gift anniversary is starting, or when a donor hits a cumulative amount, or you haven't talked to that donor in 3 months, 6 months, that is so much better than trying to remember and be like, how long has it been since I've called the Smiths? But just having little automated reminders to help you with your donor management, absolutely huge. The next same thing is with the data entry. If you have any kind of data entry that goes into your CRM. An example of this might be gift processing. If you have a lot of small online gifts or people send in small checks, first of all, what a wonderful place to be. We definitely want to be where we can acquire many new donors at the annual gifts, the entry level, and work our way up. But if we're spending most of our time or a huge chunk of our time gift processing, it's a super slow, super frustrating thing that a CRM can do pretty well. The same thing with data segmentation. We call it data segmentation. This is something that AI can do super well right now. And there are ethical ways to sort your donors, to sort your prospects, to help prioritize what comes next. You don't have to buy these fancy AI tools. You can just use ChatGPT, kind of anonymize the data, upload those documents to the AI engine and have it point out patterns, make suggestions about who you contact next, who might be a good candidate for gift. So there's all these automation tools. We could do a whole video on this. So comment if you want something about AI tools and automation tools that are free and easy. But just know that if there are repeated processes that you find yourself doing over and over, there's probably a digital tool that can do that for you for very, very low cost. So say it's $15 a month to invest in a software that does something. That per hour for you might be less than $1, which of course your hourly is worth way more than $1 per hour, and you're costing the organization money by not spending that hour working on something that's more revenue producing. So wherever you can get automation, you can really help avoid burnout, because people will get the sense that, oh, I should be doing something else. I know I need to be doing this, but I'm so frustrated because I'm having to spend all this time on data entry or these kind of remedial admin-y type tasks. So kind of make a list of all the things that you do that are admin or repeated or data entry and go, if I could pick one thing on this list and I could automate it, what would it be? And then just do a little research or ask us. We might be able to make some suggestions on what tools you need, but this is very custom to you. You just want to kind of think about, what do I not have to do anymore that I do every day, every week, every month that would make my life much easier and kind of take my overall stress down. Hey, thanks for checking out our video. If you're getting value out of this but would like something more personalized, you can book 30 minutes with one of our experts to see if you qualify for our support services. Link below in the description. Number 3 is to prioritize major gifts and recurring revenue. There's nothing that will take a weight off your shoulders like more money in the door. Regardless of what's going on in your organization, regardless of what's happening with your fundraising, if you're producing a lot of cash for the organization and things are going well financially, every single decision that you make is easier. Or if you need to take some time and redo your website or plan for a campaign, you have so much more runway if you have a bunch of front-loaded cash to give you more time to more leisurely work on things. The best way to feel stressed is to have too much to do and not enough time to do it. With more revenue, your time expiration is so much further in the future that you can slow down and be more selective about the things that you're doing. So it just makes everything easier. These are probably the top 2 revenue producing activities that you can do as a fundraiser, period. Major gifts make sense. We define a major gift as anything over $50,000 pledged over a couple of years. Some organizations will count at $10,000 and up. Some organizations may consider $100,000 and up a major gift, but we know that even if I spent 10 hours identifying a donor, cultivating them, kind of qualifying them as a potential for a gift candidate, and then making an ask, and I got $100,000, my hourly ROI for those 10 hours to the $100,000 toward the mission is nothing close. There's not a single activity you can do that's more valuable than that. No grant is going to be better than that. No government funding. Nothing you can do is better than that major gift. So we really say prioritize time like this. So in the beginning, again, talking about, do we have 80 hours of work and we're picking our favorite 40? Just start with prioritizing major gifts. Recurring revenue the same way. So even if a smaller gift, if you can get people to give on a monthly basis and set up recurring giving programs or giving clubs to incentivize people to give continuously, you give them updates, make them feel like they're part of an exclusive group, a club, they're all supporting something together, all the things that we do to optimize our recurring gifts, it just makes it easier. You want minimum time, maximum return. And again, this kind of unlocks and allows you to do everything better. Going back to the calendar thing again, the best way to make sure that this happens is to schedule it in your week, as if you have a meeting. Say like Tuesday mornings and Thursday afternoons, I'm just gonna do only major gift stuff. We have a whole video on how to spend your time on major gifts. So if you want to know exactly how to break these 2 hours down and what activities are appropriate and best, go ahead and watch that video. It's free here on YouTube. But take the time and block the time on your calendar every single week, because what that will do is it will then reduce the need to do some of the other stuff as well. If we're bringing in crazy money through major gifts and we have a lot of reliable recurring revenue, the pressure to do more events, the pressure to apply for more grants, the pressure to send more mailings goes down and down and down. And that frees up our schedule, it takes down the stress, and it reduces the chance of burnout. Number 4 is realistic goals. So I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have heard of the New Year's resolution, and I'm sure we're all familiar that most people don't do their New Year's resolutions. And there are a lot of theories as to why this is the case. Our take on this is it's too much time. 365 days is too long of a time horizon to set a bunch of goals. We have such a long road before we see progress, and we have these milestones and these check-ins, and yes, it's working, that by the time we get into halfway through January or maybe halfway through February, we've kind of given up on all the stuff we're doing. We're like, it's too overwhelming. So we tend to set, by default, big goal, long time. We don't want to set big goal, long time. This is not going to work. It's the same reason that New Year's resolutions don't work. We want to set small goal, short time. Just as a bonus tip, if you are trying to set New Year's resolutions, I would instead call them January resolutions. What can you do realistically in January, and by the time you get to the end of January, you're totally and completely done. And then do it again. And then we have February resolutions, and you have March. The other great thing about this is you don't have to wait until next winter to set these goals. So you can actually do this every single month. If it helps you to have like, the first of the month, I'm gonna start this. Great, but we go small goal, short time frame. This helps the goals be way more realistic. Again, things can change so much in a year. Priorities can change, staff can change, board can change. All of these things, we can have tons of turnover in a year. It's too long of a time horizon. It's fine to have these big multi-year goals, as long as you then break them down into these smaller goals. The first thing you should do when you say, in the year 2025, in the year 2026, I want to do this. It's like, okay, now what are you going to do in each quarter? It's divided into 3 months. It's kind of these 12-week sprints, as we call them. And then you divide it again into 1 month. What are we going to do over a 1 month? Now let's divide it again. What are the weekly tasks now we can have for these small goals? So setting realistic goals is less about the intensity of the goal, and it's more about just reducing the time frame. Short to-do list, short time frame, always the way to go, because you get these little wins. And instead of saying, I have 78 things I want to accomplish in 2025, it's like, no, I have 4 things I want to accomplish before March. And that feels way more comfortable than trying to get this giant list. It's just overwhelming. So just narrow the focus, narrow the amount of things you have to do. What this will do is just kind of take the overwhelm off. It kind of takes the edge out. What we do with a lot of our clients every single year, as many as we can, is a whole year of planning and scheduling. Say, let's talk about it. Let's define these 78 things that we have and plot them out for the year, and let's put them into months and quarters so that we know on each of these milestones we want to hit this by this month, this by this month, and we're giving ourselves permission to procrastinate and push back some of the goals because we're working on just these short things at a time. So this requires some planning, obviously, but in order to set realistic goals, we just want to make it easy and frictionless to accomplish them and accomplish them often. Number 5 is invest in well-being. Here's just some easy ways to get started. Professional development and education to give people a sense that they're progressing, that they're learning, and that they don't always have to be doing, but sometimes we're sharpening the axe before we use it, and having the organization help support you through this or encourage this just fosters a sense of, oh, this matters, and what we're doing is we're building, and we don't have to have it all figured out at once, but just having some basic professional development and education. Obviously, we have a lot of free resources to do this, so there's plenty to find on the Pride YouTube channel and the Pride website if you want to start with something that's zero cost. Another tricky one is work-life balance, and no one's going to agree on this. Some people are like, oh, it's hustle culture and you can just tough it. 80 years ago everybody worked 100 hours a week and they were fine and they were just as happy and they managed to raise their families. And there's some people on the other extreme saying like all workplace culture is so toxic and any work that you do outside of regular business hours is not worth it and you're just going to burn your employees out. And probably the truth is somewhere in between those, so where we can say the work-life balance can have balance. So you don't have to say, well, there's absolutely no emailing after this time or no weekend work. The reality of nonprofits is you're probably going to have to work some different and weird hours, but just kind of scheduling rest before you need it and just building in those blocks of time off is worth a lot more than having like hard or strict boundaries on when you can and can't answer email. The tricky thing with where we are in terms of a communication society where we have these laptops and cell phones and we're always connected to each other is our work and our life are less balanced and they're more just kind of woven together, especially for those of us like myself who work from home. It just kind of becomes this blur, and it's less about the balance of, oh, I leave work at work and I take home some work and I don't take home, like all of this doesn't really matter as much as just making sure that I have enough rest, enough joy, that maybe my work sometimes gives me energy and some of my work takes energy, and being aware of which direction the energy is flowing, trying to take rest before I get to the place of burnout. And by the way, burnout is an overly used term. Burnout takes sometimes years to recover from. It's a much more extreme version of what people describe as probably the phrase compassion fatigue. This is the more correct term where people are just like, I'm just not as motivated, like I'm trying to find excitement in the mission, but I'm just struggling and I just need a couple days off. That's compassion fatigue. Burnout is like, I have pushed myself so far that it will take me months or even years to recover, much more extreme. So whatever space you're in for that, just having an awareness of your work-life balance is kind of the first step. You don't have to have hard boundaries or set hard hours or go to one extreme and the other. It just kind of we're always gonna take note. We're gonna be aware of this and we're gonna make sure our team is always aware of this as well. Number 6 is engage your board and volunteers. This is literally free help. If you're like, I need more hours in the week to do this, this, and this, you have a whole group of people here who work for no pay. And they are probably pretty passionate about the mission in the same way that you are. Maybe they're even more passionate because they're not even doing this for pay. They're doing this because they want to or they believe in the mission. But most nonprofits don't do a great job of engaging their board and their volunteers. There's such an underutilized, especially in the fundraising piece. And we have a bunch of videos on how to best engage your board and what are the things you should do. So I don't want to go too much into detail. You can click over and look at that. But really, I want you to understand that there's more than one piece to this fundraising that we can ask our board and volunteers to do, saying, oh, my board's not good at fundraising. They never bring in any money. They don't have to do the whole thing. So they can do one of 3 things. They can connect. All they have to do is give you names and then connect you to those people, not just hand you a list of, hey, call these people, but I will set up the call, or we'll have a 3-way meeting with the board member, the staff member, and then the donor prospect. But they just want to get new people connected to the organization and stop there. That's super useful. They could also cultivate. Once the prospect is semi-interested or connected to the organization in some way, the board member talks about why they give, why they serve. They don't have to make any asks. They just go with you on the call and talk about why the project's important, why the mission is important, what first got them excited to give or serve or some combination. Just their endorsement of your project goes a long way to bring along on a donor call or to share their story in some way. And then of course they could also close or ask. Some board members are great at this. They say, I can go talk to someone and get money. Very few people are gonna be effective here just because they don't want to be. This is the hardest part of fundraising, obviously. And if your board is really excited and doing a great job with this, that's awesome. But just know that they have these other options that are equally effective if you can fill in the gaps in the other spaces. And you don't have to have 7 cultivation meetings with every prospect. You can maybe have 1 or 2, especially if that board member is involved, because they don't have to trust the nonprofit right away. They can just trust the board member and saying, well, I don't know a lot about this animal shelter or this whatever, but I know my friend who is on the board of the animal shelter, and if they're involved, I trust that endorsement. I will consider a gift, or I will give a gift. And you can actually move through this process of fundraising much faster by using the board. So not only do you get the free extra hours, but the amount of time it takes them to connect in the fundraising process is a fraction of what it takes you. So really engage your board and volunteers. If you're not using this, you have a ton of hours of untapped potential that you can jump into. And number 7 is, of course, outside help. Now, we're a little biased because this is what we do as a company. This is what we provide for the nonprofit space, is to take organizations that are on the verge of burnout or are spinning their wheels or having a little bit of difficulty getting unstuck in whatever their fundraising piece is, and just putting together structure and strategy and additional man hours and just extra help so that we can get past this point of we're doing too much and it's becoming too hard right now. We just need a little bit of outside help and direction. Sometimes just having a sounding board to say, hey, these are my 7 initiatives. These are the strategies I'm implementing right now. Are these effective, across your other clients? What's working best in this space? Can I connect to some of these other clients and ask them questions? And just having a little bit of outside perspective, even for a temporary couple of months, sometimes makes a big difference. So obviously, if you want outside help, you can head over to pridephilanthropy.com and chat with one of our experts to see if we can learn a little bit about your mission, your organization, to see if you qualify for outside help. But there are other firms that do this too. Again, we're super biased because we feel like we do this really well. We raise in tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars a year for our clients, but there are lots of great individuals who are great outside counsel that you don't have to hire full time, and you can get a lot of help just to get unstuck. Hopefully some of these tactics can help prevent burnout with your fundraising team. If you want to learn more about how we can help, definitely head over to our website or leave a comment with some questions below, and we'll see you in the next video.